Well, I guess in the coming days, there'll be a lot more reactions from, who knows, maybe from the Southern governors themselves, maybe from the National Assembly, who, oh, by the way, the Speaker, the President of the Senate and the Speaker also spoke thereafter, but perhaps much later they'll get to hear for those who may not have. Yeah. But I'm sure a lot of people will also take a look at, re-examine that comments by the President following the meeting. Well, who knows, really? But these are some of the issues that we'll be looking at this morning. And as such, we've got Dr. Paul Ananaba, Senior Advocate of Nigeria. Good morning, and thank you for joining us today on the program. Well, I haven't heard the Southern Governor's 10-point agenda or recommendation. I see why. But there are perspectives wherein people begin to see how will the laws support some of these resolutions, if not all of them, what needs to be done. But yes, there's the National Assembly caucus themselves, the Southern senators in the National Assembly, even the House of Representatives, threw their weight behind the submissions or recommendations of the Southern governors. So from your perspective, tell us, does the National Assembly have capacity, or in what way do you think that they can perhaps give some sort of structure to some of these recommendations from the Southern Governors Forum?
Well, thank you, Chamberlain. I think the first thing is that despite the knocks from you get now from the against what the Southern governors have done, I think the first thing is to commend these Southern governors for going the bipartisan, multi-ethnic road of governance. We have rarely seen this. You know, we would have seen those from APC or PDP or whatever other parties going in different directions. But this time, it looks a lot more patriotic. And that's what we are talking about. Governance must be done in public interests and not just what we're seeing before.
All right, Dr. Ananaba, we're losing you there, so I think we'll just have to see, perhaps. Okay. We'll just have to see. It's still not clear enough, but we'll sort it out and then get you back. But some of the initial comments you've heard there, talking about, yes, that they had to go bipartisan. And I think people shouldn't be surprised because, look, you hear knocks. You know, there will be perhaps more knocks from other regions, maybe other areas, other quarters, interest groups. But then largely, lots of people just thought, leadership. I think you referenced a similar matter. If we will tend to see, or if we will see this kind of camaraderie moving forward, not just amongst the Southern counterparts, across board, up north as well, such that the interests of the people will be paramount when it comes to issues such as this one. But the President of the Senate spoke up. Even though many couldn't understand some of this, but some of the highlights, which we'll get to hear, he did take, was it a knock or direct reference? Yes, to some of the demands of the resolutions, as a matter of fact. Well, here is his part now.
I believe that as leaders, particularly those of us that are elected at all levels of government, we should avoid partisanship, we should avoid regionalism. We are all leaders and we are in this together. The solutions must come from us regardless of what level of government we are, whether at the federal level or at the state level or even at the local government level. And I want to take this opportunity also to say that we have diminished the local government system. I think we can attribute some of the security issues to the absence of local government system, functional local government system. For me, I think the time has come for us to take up the challenge, the gauntlet, to ensure that the local government system functions. This is in keeping with looking for ways, for means, for solutions to the security challenges that we face. We must never neglect the local government system. I believe that this is one system that had worked, even though in a different name, when it was Native Authority. It was very effective, very efficient. So we must go back to our local government system to ensure that the local governments continue to be autonomous, continue to be functional in order to complement whatever the states and the federal governments will be doing.
This is not a time.
Okay, just hang on a bit for that, but the second part of it. But yes, the president of the Senate saying, look, this kind of call should not be coming from elected leaders.
So who should it be coming from? You know, I think I understand, you know, I'm trying to understand his perspective as to, look, you know what, rather than make such pronouncements publicly, let's discuss it in an executive session, so to speak, so that we can, you know, have a, you know, way forward about it. But
hasn't that always been the problem? Or in recent times? Because this is about security now.
Chamberlain, there
Largely.
are 3 senators from each state of the Federal Republic of Nigeria in the National Assembly, all governed under the administration, so to speak, of the President of the Senate. All right? So if this position of the Southern governors was different, the senators would have cried wolf. It is not. All Northern governors said the same thing. You recall the comment of the governor of Benue State as
grazing.
well, that open grazing is no longer fashionable. It is not news. And then something that he said about the local government administration, wow. I just recall, I mean, we would not have the kind of epidemic we have on our hands now if the local governments were effective. Because as little as they have sanitation officers. You could call them sanitation police. In the Yoruba palace, they call them wole wole. They entered your house, checked the water you drank, just to make sure that you were drinking healthy water. Your house, not public water.
And there was a lot of trust.
And there was a lot of camaraderie among the people, you know. So so when the Senate President, the President of the Senate is saying that, you know, the local government needs to work, the question I'm asking is, what role can the National Assembly play in that? We always have this collaboration with the state houses of assembly who have supervisory authority over local governments. Yes, but how far so far? What can be done by the legislature?
You know, when he says, this President of the Senate, that, look, there's a failure, local government system, there's several things that shouldn't have happened. But look, the governor of Ondo State told us the other day, it's not the first time they've been meeting. But interestingly, this particular meeting, you see a lot of commendations across board, across different parts of the southern region who are plagued with security challenges. So the governor's chief security officers of their states, albeit some say on paper, but they seem to have picked up on what the people who elected them want.
Absolutely.
And if they highlight some of those things, look, maybe some other persons want them to be politically correct. But the thing is, and with due respect to all political leaders across board, but the people are saying, you have not done enough from what we have seen. If their families are being kidnapped, ransom being paid, people have to squeeze so much and people don't feel secure, what do you expect them to do?
I'm wondering.
And where have they been all the while? If you now say, well, local government system has failed, what have you done 6 years on about some of those matters? So who knows?
Major questions right there, but you know, maybe we should go back to that conversation with Dr. Ananaba. Well, you started by telling us, I mean, there's a little bit of commendation at least from what the southern governors have begun to say and to do now. But then the issue of legality has also been raised by some. In what ways do you think they have maybe perhaps, you know, run roughshod of the law in one way? Because some are saying, I mean, listening to Senator Ndume yesterday was saying that maybe the constitutional consideration of free movement was not considered in that suggestion or recommendation or resolution by the governors. Perhaps there are others you may want to reference.
Thank you. I was just saying that democracy entails that you have your say, you have your view, and I want to say that there's no philosophy in this world that doesn't have an adherence. There must be somebody who believes in every kind of thing across the world. But coming close to what we are talking about now, you will agree with me that even what we call fundamental rights are not without some derogations, even from the Constitution. The Constitution, Section 45, derogates in public interest, in the interest of health and security and all that. No Nigerian will say that there is no issue of public security and public interest in terms of issue of movements across the country now. That will be just playing the ostrich and living in denial. Now, we cannot, in fact, the Supreme Court has heard in Asari Dokubo's case that when we are talking about national interest, a bit of so much of fundamental right doesn't arise. If they are shooting at Channel Television, now you won't be there to discuss. That's the point being made. So I believe the governors have done the right thing, and I support what they've done. They have not enacted any law, but as elected governors of the entire South, they are inundated every day with complaints of burning of stations, shooting, killing, kidnapping. They are close to the populace. And if this is what happens across, and they have come together to say to the leadership at the national level, to say, listen, this thing should be addressed. I think it shouldn't be taken lightly. They have not picked up arms. They have not done any further thing, but to say, across bipartisan lanes, this is not politics. This is not by a political party. This is not by a pressure group. These are elected governors. And I would have expected that there would have been serious attention to it. And not even that alone, members of the National Assembly from the South have also weighed in on this. So, literally speaking, in a manner of speaking, the entire South have taken this position. So it is something that I believe that we should encourage, rather than allow the country to continue to drift. You know that these governors are in the best position to let the President of the Federal Republic to know what is going on in the country. So that is my position. I think the governors have done the right thing, and I think they should be commended. And I think the federal government should address these issues. Take, for example, the issue of national dialogue. That is overdue. The one that was, the conference that was done in 2014 has not been addressed properly. And we need to address those things. We need to come together to stop. We better judge than war. I think that is what the issue is. So I think everywhere in Nigeria should commend these governors so that they will continue, to do the right things. Thank you.
Yeah, but that part where they call for national dialogue and that the president should address the country, what kind of structure should this national dialogue take? Because you know that there's been several calls about conference, sovereign national conference, or national conference, or let the National Assembly play a particular role. Maybe the president should lead it. So does this appear vague? What's your impression of what convening a national dialogue means?
National dialogue means. The National Assembly is and the call for a dialogue. If the National Assembly is something that we need. So,
all right, All right, Dr. Naba, apologies again. I mean, we just seem to be losing you. The network, perhaps we'll sort that out and then bring you back as well. But we also do have Ebunlu Adegboro, Senior Advocate of Nigeria. Good morning, and thank you for joining us as well this morning. Perhaps I should pick it up from... Yeah, let me pick it up from the perspective of this national dialogue on this Southern Conference, even though we'll come to the comments of the President of the Senate, the President, and the Speaker. But when the Southern governors say there needs to be a national dialogue, what's your impression of what this means and how it should play out?
I think if you look back to the 2015 elections, when the All Progressive Congress was seeking the mandate of Nigerians to be in power, they brought a manifesto. And that manifesto clearly talks about devolution of powers. They talked about amending the constitution to ensure that the subnationals, the regions, the people of Nigeria themselves will have a say in how they are governed, in how their resources are being utilized. And that has not happened since 2015, up to now. So when the governors gather together and are calling for a sovereign national conference, they are reflecting the will of Nigerians. They are reflecting the desire of Nigerians. There seems to be so much confusion in the land, and there's need for a cohesive discussion that will give us a meaning of what Nigeria Federation is all about now. I mean, look at what is going on in the land. Insecurity, farmers can't go to work. You cannot even travel within your local entity. So, and the governors are not in charge because they don't have control over security. The governors are not in charge because they cannot harness the resources in their states for the benefit of their people. The governors are not in charge because they go to Abuja every month to go and beg for money in a federation. The governors are not in charge because even universities that they establish and they call state universities, it is the federal government that will determine who can get admission into a university that is being funded by a state. The governors are not in charge because they cannot even generate electricity for their own people, even though they have the resources. So it's important that at the stage we are now, we are at a critical stage of our nation that we should not be pretending that there is a federation called Nigeria. We should determine the terms of that federation. We should dismantle the constitution and get us a new document that will define what indeed should be the terms of our togetherness. I think that's what the governors mean by there's need for national conference.
All right.
It is important and urgent.
Okay, we'll come back to both of you, gentlemen, when we return on this national conference, new constitution, the role of the National Assembly moving forward. That's when we return. Stay with us. All right, welcome back. Continuing our conversation with Dr. Paul Dananaba and Mr. Ebunlu Adegboro, both of them senior advocates of Nigeria. But let me get to you, Dr. Dananaba, on this question of the role the National Assembly can play, because the Southern Caucus have told the Southern governors, we support you. Just reach out to us such that we could harmonize these positions and give it the legal framework, as it were, such that it could make a lot more meaning beyond rhetorics. So what role do you see them playing, particularly when it's got to do with perhaps a new constitution or the dialogue?
Yeah, thank you. The National Assembly, Section 4 of the Constitution gives them the power to make laws. But you could agree with me that they've been altering the Constitution. They've done that 4 times already, and it has not solved the problem. It is the nature of the problem that you have that determines the solution to it. These governors are aware, many of them are lawyers. They are aware and they can see that the speed and the approach of the National Assembly cannot solve this. And in this country, we have had conferences, assemblies and all that to address these issues. This requires a national dialogue. Now, in the National Assembly, you have to obey party supremacy. You have to work along party caucus and all that. That's not what Nigeria needs at this time. Nigeria needs a frank and open discussion, similar to the 2014 conference, where we will review all previous conferences. And I agree as to the terms as my brother was talking about, This federation, how do we run it? Will we run it by the principles of the 1960s, 70s, and 80s? Or are we going to run it in such a different manner that it will be beneficial to all and acceptable to all? That is the problem, and that is the issue. These governors have seen that, and I believe that they need support. I expect the governors of the North too to key in, because they are not also finding it easy. It's not a matter of the North and South. It's a matter of the heart and soul of Nigeria. We should all come together and sit together. It's not a matter of balkanizing or destroying the country. No, that must not be on the table. It is a matter of how do we manage our federation so that it will be better and beneficial. We are not enjoying it. You can't travel. You can't do a lot of things. Students in schools cannot go to school and be sure that they are safe. Some of them have been taken away, abducted, kidnapped, and killed. And these are children of human beings. They are human beings. They say that there are parents that have lost their children. Look at security personnel that have been shot every day. Don't we feel for them? How can an investor come to this country today with this insecurity? You are not even sure we will be on the road between your house and the airport. So that's the point. So it's not a matter of things that we should take to the National Assembly. The National Assembly has its role well cut out in the Constitution. Let them continue to do that. But we don't need to alter the Constitution again. We need to have a Constitution that reflects the wishes and thinking of Nigerians today. Look at the 1999 Constitution. It was put together in 30 days. I'm not criticizing that Constitution, but I'm saying that we need a deeper thinking to evolve what we can call an autochthonous Constitution. A Constitution we can look at properly. And I wouldn't be thinking of starting that process when it is too late and then just rush it. It shouldn't be rushed. And membership of such dialogue must be carefully selected and not politicized and not given to a handful of people. Which the details of what the governors have said should be worked out. They didn't work out the details, but they made the point. And I agree with those points, that we need a dialogue, we need to reevaluate and restructure this country, and we need to take a second look at the way we are running the country. If we continue to run this country the way we've been running, it will not give a better result. Thank you.
Well, Mr. Oluwadubura, I suspect you want to react to some of the things that you've heard Dr. Paul Ananaba talk about. First of all, because I have one question from what you said earlier, but you want to first of all quickly react to some of the things that you've heard?
Well, I will react to that, and indeed some of the bylines that you displayed on the screen. You know, because we must understand the concept of constitutional rights so that we don't use them negatively or wrongly. When the Constitution says in section 38 that you have a freedom of movement, it is not a freedom to trespass on the right of property of others. The freedom of movement simply means, Ayo, that you as a human being, you are entitled to travel. You are entitled to go anywhere you like in the public areas without restriction on your liberty. But I cannot use freedom of movement to enter Channels Television by force, or carry my cattle and enter the premises of Channels Television where you have locked your gate, because you have already acquired a right of property over that land. Maybe you bought it from somebody And the moment you have that right, I cannot use my freedom of movement to take my cattle into your premises by force and dwell there. There's no such constitutional right. The people who own farmland, the communities that own that land under the Land Use Act, which is under the Constitution. The land belongs to the people. So if I need to do any work within their land, I need their permission to sit down with them to negotiate the terms of what I want to use the land for. How many years? What quantum of land I require? What will I be doing on the land? How much will I pay for it? So you cannot say that you will move within other people's property by exercising right to freedom of movement. And I think it's clear that the people who own property have a right to defend their property. And if you need to use their property, you require their consent. So I think that's the concept of the issue of open grazing. And I think all of us have agreed that indeed we need to have some understanding by which the people who want to rear cattle or graze must have some permission by the owners of the land, who will then agree on the terms of that. Having said that, I think that the first thing I like to react to what Dr. Ananaba said is to really commend the governors, because they have spoken the minds of their people. Section 14 says clearly that the security and welfare of the people shall be the primary purpose of government. So once life is not safe, once property is not safe, then there is no governance. But to that extent, I just want to put a challenge to the governors themselves. If we are calling for devolution of power, if we are calling for resource control, if we are calling for state police, the governors should start from their home front. The judiciary is currently begging the governors for freedom. The judiciary is presently begging the governors to release their fund so that justice administration can be easier. So charity should begin at home. And the governor should, as a matter of urgency, end the crisis we have in the judiciary now by releasing the funds that are meant for the judges. Because you cannot be calling for restructuring in the federal and you are sitting over the resources of people who administer justice. And we've been begging you for close to 1 month. And there seems to be no solution. And the governors are lawyers. They are senior lawyers. So we should get that solved. And then we agree that moving forward, we can use that template to discover the path to true federation, through restructuring, through state police.
Just a little bit on that particular point. You know, recently, I think, yeah, it was this week as well, there was a comment credited to the Minister of Information where he was talking about the federal government is considering decentralizing, I think it's the judiciary, such that it will not be federally controlled as such, and states will have a larger, bigger role to play in those areas. So will that in any way address some of these concerns you've raised?
I think it will, but the challenge we have is that it will seem that there is no commitment on the part of the governors across the states, not just southern, but also northern states, because they seem to be a little bit scared that a judiciary that is not under control would end all acts of impunity on the part of the executive, which can be worked together to ensure that justice administration is smooth and does not look at people's faces. You dispense justice without will, without favor, without evil, without affection, without fear that if you deliver a judgment against your state, your salary may be withheld. You may be witch hunt. You may be persecuted rather. So I think that is the area where we are addressing, that the governor should, please, for once, not be scared. They should release the judges to have independence and autonomy to administer justice according to law. So what the Honorable Minister of Information declared is in line with the expectation of Nigerians for smooth administration of justice.
But Dr. Nanaba, you know, the conclusion or the resolution of the governors praised across all divides as they are, the question that might be on the minds of many is, how will this be executed? How are these resolutions going to be executed in a way that it represents the exact interests that they want and not just some partisanship? It is getting it done, not just saying it, but getting it done. That is the issue. Do you see any any challenge in that? In that?
Well, the first point is I agree with my brother Evo, that the states should begin this charity at home. If you don't begin it at home, and you are pointing fingers only at the federal government, you are getting it wrong, and that must be addressed. Secondly, the federal government should come out and accept that the governors have done are right in their requests. And then, thirdly, implementation comes by having agreed some committee, smaller committee, should look at the resolutions of these governors, and then we will come to modalities for implementing them. It will not be implemented when they are being castigated by the leadership of the National Assembly. What the governors are talking about is so important, and it's the expectations. They are the expectations of Nigerians. So when there is the will, implementation becomes a lot easier. All we need is to acknowledge this will of the people. Having acknowledged the will of the people, state police, open grazing, and all that, we can come together. A committee structures out the dialogue. That's why there's need for dialogue. When the issues are streamlined, we sit down and talk and agree. And let me make this point clearly, that if we come out of this as a country successfully, other countries will learn the Nigerian model, and it will help them to come out of their own crisis. We can come out of this successfully and stronger, and the Nigerian Federation can become a subject of study globally. Now, today we look at the examples of the history of the United States, the history of the UK, the Soviet republics and all that. They passed through it and came out successfully. Nigeria is capable of doing so, and the governors have taken that patriotic step. I believe that it will be necessary for the governors, even of the North, across bipartisan lines and ethnic lines, to give support to these resolutions, and then support the federal government. We move on to the implementation stage. We are not at the implementation stage now. The stage now is the stage of agreeing that we have a problem, that Chamberlain, a police station needs to be protected. When you get to that level, you should know that you are in a problem. A police patrol team needs needs protection. So where will the citizens go? You can't go to farm. You can't do a lot of things. That's the issue.
All right, Mr. Adeboro, listening to the President of the Senate, it comes across, body language as they call it, as though he's not enthused with the recommendations, 10-point albeit, of the Southern governor, saying, look, those elected officials should not be the one championing some of these things. This problem we have is as a result of the failure of the local government system. So it does suggest as though he doesn't buy it. And if they're to take it to the National Assembly and they play a role, doesn't that suggest that that right there might just be part of the hurdles that needs to be crossed if we're to have this new constitution, as you say?
I listened to the horrible president of the Senate of the Federal Republic and even the Speaker. I think that if we go with what goes on in Nigeria now, it seems that once you step your feet upon the premises of Faso Villa, I mean, what comes out then begin to become a matter of suspicion as to whether indeed it resonates with the yearnings and aspirations of the people of Nigeria. The legislators were elected to represent the people of their various constituencies. The Speaker of the House of Representatives cannot, in all good conscience, tell me that he will come to Lagos and repeat what he said on television. We shouldn't continue to behave as if we don't know what our people are going through. I live in Lagos. Is he not aware that we don't sleep with two eyes closed? Is the Honorable Speaker, with respect to him, not aware that virtually in all the parts of his constituency, in the southwest, in the southeast, in the north central, in the northeast, bandits and terrorists have taken over the lives of the people. People can go to their farms, people can go to school. Is he not aware? So I think that, with all due respect to the President of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Representatives, the utterances that they uttered yesterday do not resonate even with the will of their own political party. If they go back to read the manifesto and the constitution of their own party, what they are uttering is totally at variance with the promise they made to Nigerians. So I think that that is unacceptable. What the southern governors have said.
For some reason, we seem to have lost sound on that particular matter. But, gentlemen, we do get both points, all the points you've made. And at this point, we need to thank you both, Mr. Ebumolu Adegborowa, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, and then Dr. Paul Ananaba, Senior Advocate of Nigeria as well. Gentlemen, thank you very much indeed for your time this morning.
Thank you very much indeed.
All right, we'll be back and still staying on the same matter, but different perspectives. Don't go away.